Hey everybody, welcome to part 3 of the Coastal Drift knit wrap, the Lion Brand Summer 2025 Mystery Make Along. So I am traveling back in time to answer some questions and do this video again to go over the elongated garter stitch, so I can answer some questions that I got from the first clue for people that were coming off of this garter stitch section. So this section that I thought was going to be really simple is the one that people had questions on. Not a ton of questions, but I did get some emails from people that were asking about what happened to the edging. So I know on Mystery Designs it's confusing because you don't know what the designer was thinking or why things are happening. And yes, you don't know if it's a mistake or if it's intentional, or because you don't know what the process is. So I'm just going to kind of tell you what I was answering in my emails and sort of give you my thought process and give you some options so you kind of know what's going on. So I made this swatch to give you a demonstration. Now, we had in the first part, right, you had your half twisted rib, and then we went into the knotted open work, which did have a border on it. So you had the 1x1 half twisted rib, and then it wraps around your first stitch to create that border edge. Now, we will balance that out on the other side of your wrap. And that provides like an edge, gives the side of your shawl structure some weight and a finished edge. Okay, frames it out. Now, the garter stitch kind of wraps it and ends that end of your shawl section, and now we move into like the body of the shawl. There are two versions happening. There is the knit version and there is the crochet version. I sort of challenged myself to make them similar. Obviously they don't match exactly because one's knit and one's crochet, and they're two completely different crafts. And you just can't really do the same thing with both of them because they treat yarn differently. So, but we're going for the same sort of idea, right? So in crochet, it has a raw, I call it a raw edge. It doesn't have like that same sort of finishing that you might have on knitting. I mean, I might have crocheters yelling at me for that. Maybe I should backpedal and reword that, but you can finish the edges on crocheting, but it's very different than with knitting. So maybe I should put it that way. You don't have the same options that you do with knitting. So I don't have that ribbing going up the crochet. It does have a much, I don't know, I just keep calling it a raw edge. So I wanted to mimic that in the crocheted version. So what I did is I left it a raw edge right here, right? Your garter stitch has a raw edge. Now, as I've mentioned, I think I mentioned I'm losing track, right? I've recorded so many videos. We've done one for every stitch for the knit and the crochet. And at this point, like I said, I went back in time. So I don't remember what I said when, but I do know at some point I mentioned not to worry about where you're switching colors, because if you would like to, we will be covering those color change sections, the color change edge, with fringe. So you will have that on one side to cover up that one of those edges. So only one edge will be exposed. Now on this piece here, I have two options of what I told people when I was answering their emails. On this side, you see what I have in the pattern as written, now going into this section. This is the option, another option that I gave people. And then a third option that when people asked is, can you carry that 1x1 rib through your entire shawl? Yes, you can. It might get a little tricky in the section that is coming after this. You will have to sort of adjust where the stitch pattern ends within the boundaries of that. But is it possible? Yes. If you like that 1x1 all the way through, go for it. If you want to do the pattern as written, this is how it's gonna progress. And like I said, one side will have the fringes on it. Or the other option I gave people is you could, I called it pull the garter stitch from this section through the remainder of the shawl, and have that. So that you would have this effect of you kind of pulled, I don't even know if my hand's still in the frame. You pulled the ribbing through the first section, and now you're pulling the garter stitch into the next section. So you're kind of flowing things from section to section, right? We did that with color too. You took the light blue and you pulled it from that first knotted open work section and you pulled it into the garter stitch. And then you took the husk color from that garter stitch and you're pulling it into this section. So we keep pulling things from one section to the other. So if you want to continue on with that theme, then you could do this and take the garter stitch edge and pull that into this section. So you have options, and any of those options work. I just wanted you to see that in front of you. This is not in the pattern. I am going to make a note of this in the pattern. It's just because I told some people about that in email, so I want to make sure that's an option in the pattern now for people, since I did mention it. This is what is in the pattern. So whichever way you decide you want to do it, or like I said, if you do want to continue on with the other edge, or if you didn't even think about it in the garter stitch and you already did the 1x1 rib without even noticing that it wasn't there, that's fine too. You may have noticed at this point that I am sort of go with the flow, whatever works for you. I want you to love what you're making. So if one of these works with your style over the other, then by all means do that. None of them are going to drastically change the appearance of the design. They will all work, and do whatever makes you happy, really, because you're the one making the shawl. So if you don't love it, if you don't love the way it looks, you're not gonna love making it, and that's sad. We don't want you to be sad. We want you to be happy. So anyway, I said all that just to give you the introduction to this shawl stitch pattern. Yes. All right. So the majority of this is garter stitch again. So we've had 4 rows of garter stitch. And then after that, we have the elongated section. So the elongated section is actually only 2 rows. So that's it. So the first one, now, so I'll keep continuing on with this even though it's not in the pattern, but I did a 3-stitch garter edge. So 1, 2, 3. So to do that double yarn over row, all you're doing is inserting the needle and literally wrapping it twice, okay? And you're gonna do that all the way. Now, make sure you don't do that wrap too tightly, or you're going to have some problems on the next row. So go all the way across, wrapping twice. My needles are clicking on the ground here. Right. I feel like you got that. You got that, right? I can kind of speed up a little bit here so that we get through this and we don't all have to like listen to crickets as I do this double yarn over all the way across. Oh, here we go. Need more yarn. And of course, my yarn's rolling all over the place. All right. Nope, that wasn't a double. That was a single. 1, 2. 1, 2. Let's see, I'll do one in slow motion again. So in, 1, 2, and through. Okay, that's it. All right, the wrong side row is where the magic happens. That's where we get that. That's where we get that drop stitch. Okay, almost there. Okay, last 2 stitches. Like I said, this is what's in the pattern. Purl and knit. Very minimal edge. Okay. And see, point proven there, right there. It doesn't quite go back on the needle. It's because I did some of those too tight because I was going fast. All right, so we got purl and knit. All right. So here, that double loop. Bring it closer. See, it looks like it's 2 stitches on the needle, right? Looks like 2 stitches. They all look like groups of 2. Looks like groups of 2, but it's really only 1. Right? There you go. See, down here. Stick my finger through. It's only 1 stitch there. So that's where we're gonna knit through. Right there at the bottom of those 2 loops. You're gonna go right under those 2 and pull them both off. So you have this giant hole now. So knit into the bottom and off. The bottom and off. Ay, ay, ay. Tight. And let that be your lesson right here, watching me struggle to push those up into the bottom and off the bottom. All you gotta do to fix that is just don't stress out. Relax. Knit loose. And that's it though. You got that nice elongated double yarn over drop stitch all the way across, and there you go. So whatever edge you decide that you like, go for it and go with the flow. That's your stitch, and I will see you guys next time, or last time, in the past, in the future. Okay, guys. Bye.